Hello and welcome to the channel. This is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. I hope you're having a fabulous week. So today I am showing you a watercolor card using one of the new Waffle Flower stamps and die sets, the Zinnia Stamp and Die set. And I cannot believe this is my very first Waffle Flower set. I don't know how I've never had a Waffle Flower set, but this is it, the first one. And honestly, what really attracted me to this set was the font of the sentiments. I love the font. It's very different. It's kind of unique. Although I won't be using those sentiments today in this card, I am going to be using the large flower. And I decided I wanted to do some watercoloring using the Brutus Monroe Aqua Pigments. So the colors that I'm going to be using today are blueberry, turquoise, grape, violet, yellow, yellow-green, and then the aqua pigment paper. So to do the background, all I'm doing is laying down some of the blueberry and turquoise onto my Tim Holtz glass mat. I am going to spray this with just a little bit of water, and I'm going to spray my paper down as well. And the aqua pigment paper has the same texture and consistency. It feels like just a regular watercolor paper. So you can see I'm just smushing it in until I get what I like, and you'll see that there are some dots that are kind of forming some places in it. And I wasn't really crazy about that, so what I did is went in with my heat gun, dried it, and then added some more ink and went in and did it again. And that's the great thing about watercolor is you can add some, go in, and if you don't like it, dry it, add some more. These aqua pigments are fabulous. They come in a ton of different colors. They're liquid watercolors, so they're really easy to work with. And you can see there now I'm kind of getting more of the effect that I wanted. So I'm getting more of that little bit of a layered, kind of almost like an oceany type background, although this is not an ocean card, but that's kind of what I was going for, was that really pretty kind of turquoisey color. So while I set my background to dry, I am going to start working on the flower. So for the flower, I am going to stamp out the largest flower from this set. And there are some really nice smaller flowers as well that you could add to accents as cards. And because this is my first time using the set, you saw me kind of putting it between my hands and almost looked like I was patting it a little bit just to kind of condition the stamp. And there are several ways that you can condition a new stamp. I decided that I wanted to heat emboss this using the Alabaster white ink, and I am not a professional artist, and so I am not a professional watercolor by any stretch. And so to make it easier, I like to heat emboss to create a little bit of a well. So that way when I'm watercoloring, my colors are going to stay within the embossing powder. And so that's a little trick. If you're kind of timid of using watercolor, this is a great way to do it. And I'll be honest, in hindsight, I wish I would have heat embossed it in black, just to give it a little bit more, where it stood out a little bit more when I did the watercoloring, but I am going to fix that and add some black around it, which I'm going to show you here in a moment. So I am using the Brutus Monroe Alabaster White. This is a really crisp a really crisp white embossing powder. It's one of my favorites. As you can see, this is one of the few I have a larger container of. So I'm just going to add that onto my aqua pigment paper. And I did use my Misti when I stamped this out, and that's just because with aqua pigment paper or any type of textured paper, sometimes you may have to stamp it out more than once. So I had the Misti tool, it was just easier for me to do it, but you could definitely use an acrylic block. So for the flower, I'm going in with the grape, and this grape, you can see there where I'm getting it out of the well, is it has a metallic sheen in it, which is really pretty. And I really like the light, almost lavender color that it gave. And once I got done, I decided that I wanted to go back in and add some darker shading. So that's where I'm going to use the violet. So I grab my violet and I'm going to add the shading just at the base of each petal, and some that might be sitting behind another one. And you'll see I grabbed the stamp and set it there off to the left. And that was just so I could see more easily what the image was, because white on white is sometimes hard to see. So that's another trick as well. If you're doing no line watercoloring or no line coloring, or a white heat embossing on white paper as I am, if you get the stamped image and look at it, then a lot of times that'll help you to kind of see where those lines are. So you can see I'm just taking my violet and going in through each of the areas, and you can see it really added a lot more depth and dimension to it. The yellow I am doing in the center of the flower. Now I used a very, very fine paintbrush for this because the heat embossing really took up much of that center, but there were some areas that I wanted to leave open and add that yellow. So now I'm going in and doing the leaves, which is the final step, and I am using I'm using the yellow green for this. I wanted something that wasn't so stark green, just kind of give it a little bit and also pull some of that yellow from the center out. So I do have the coordinating dies, and I cut my flower out, and this flower is rather large, and I do need to cut down my aqua pigment paper because it is not A2 size. It's a little bit larger, and so I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to get this to fit on here, knowing I need to cut it down. So what I'm going to do is actually cut off that pile of leaves right there that's sticking up. I'm going to cut those off, but you'll see at the end I'm actually going to add those back in, but I'm going to be able to add them at the length that will fit my card. So don't be afraid, even if you've watercolored, you've colored something, if you need to alter it, it's okay. You can also always go in and add it back in like I'm going to. So I told you that I really would have used a black embossing powder, and I needed something to pop my floral up off that background. Decided I wanted to create a shadow for it. However, my die was only going to cut the flower. So this is a little trick that I use and makes it very simple if you want to create a shadow for a stamp that you only have the die that fits it for. So I just cut 2 of the florals out of Hero Art's black cardstock. I lined one up towards the top, just completely ignoring the bottom, and then cut that off. And once I have the top lined up, I'm going to adhere that down with some tape runner, and you could use liquid adhesive, any type of strong adhesive you have. And then I'm going to take the bottom, the second flower, and line it up on the bottom, ignoring the top, and cut off the top part. So it's not a perfect shadow, but it works, and it's a way, if your dies don't come with shadow dies, which most like this do not, generally it's only going to be word dies, this is a great trick on how you can create a little bit of a shadow for your stamp. So you can see I'm just adding the top shadow on, and then I will flip it over and add the bottom part on. Now I did have it was a little tricky because I had cut off that set of leaves, but I was able to go in and just kind of cut around it to make it fit the floral. And like I said, I'm going to add those leaves back in, so it won't really matter. And I will add the shadow to the leaves that I cut off as well. So I'm just adhering that down with some tape runner, and now I have a shadow on my flower. So now when I put that on my background, it will pop up a little bit because the background was kind of darker. So once I cut everything down, I decided to use a sentiment from the Brutus Monroe rose border, and this says happy blooming birthday, excuse me. And I really wanted to use one of the sentiments from the stamp set, but they're large and I didn't want to cover up a lot of my florals, so that's why I decided to go with this one. And this one has a really pretty font, and I thought the blooming fit really well with the floral on it. This is actually a birthday card for my son's girlfriend's mother. So I cut a stitched wavy border die from Lawn Fawn. I'm sorry, it's a simple wavy border die from Lawn Fawn out of the Hero Arts black cardstock. And you can see there, I had added those leaves back in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to push it up under so I can have the length that I want. I didn't want the leaves to come down and cover up the banner die, so I'm just going to slide that in, And then I'll use a little bit of Gina K Connect glue just to hold that in place. So there you can see that bunch of leaves that got cut off and then added back on and then taken off again. They finally made it onto the card. So the last thing to do is add some foam tape to the back of my floral and lift it up. And then I'm also adding some foam tape and my sentiment to my banner. And I did use the Alabaster white for the sentiment. And once I lay that down and adhere it, that's it. That's the final card. This card was so much fun to create. I love to watercolor. I really need to do a video with all of the watercolor panels I have. I could do probably 30 videos with just watercolor panels. But that's the fun of it. You sit down and you kind of create maybe something you don't like that you created right then. When you come back to it, you find that you really do like it once it's dried back. So I encourage you to grab your watercolors, start to play, and definitely check out this new release by Waffle Flower. This set is so beautiful. And like I said, the sentiment font is just fabulous. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed and you learned something and you were inspired. If you're not already a subscriber, I hope that you'll subscribe. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much and have a great day.